Hello and welcome to week 36. This is a very special week because it is the very last lesson of Unit 4. We have now learned everything there is to know about 4-note chords. And starting next week, we'll be entering into the last unit, Unit 5, which will be a final look at scales. So for today, we'll be doing our usual 16th note rhythm warm-up. We'll be looking at the final diminished scale and chord, including the drill that goes with that. And then for our reading today, I've composed another one of the clouds pieces, right? We've had major 7 clouds, we've had minor 7 clouds. Now we're going to be looking at diminished 7 clouds, and it's going to use some extended diminished techniques that I'm very excited to share with you. But before we do that, let's go to the drum and get warmed up. Let's get started on line 1. The metronome will be at 40 BPM, and this will represent the downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top on hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for line 2, we will speed the metronome up to 45 BPM, and now that will represent the upbeats. Let's check it out. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top on hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, for line 3, we will put our metronome on halftime, which means we will be going at 50 BPM. The metronome will be set at 25 BPM. And for today, let's have this be the upbeat of the 1 and the 3. So the metronome will represent the upbeat of the 1 and the 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Last but not least, we'll look at line 4. We're going to speed our metronome up to 30, which means we will be going at 60 BPM, and now the metronome will represent the second and the fourth upbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now that we're all rhythmically warmed up, let's head back to the piano. For today's diminished 7th drill, we'll be taking a look at D, F, A flat, and B diminished, along with this octatonic scale. Let's get things started with our right hand inversions. Let's do that with our left hand. And now let's do one chord, but with two hands. All right, let's put the chord in our left hand starting on D, and we'll begin the scale on D as well. Here we go. Let's go up 1 to F. A flat. And finally up to B. Okay, let's do that same thing, but reverse our hands. So we'll start on D with our right hand chord, left hand scale. Let's move up to F. Let's move up to A flat. And finally up to B. For today's sight reading, I created a piece called Clouds of Diminished 7, and as I said before, this uses some extended diminished techniques. Whereas last week in the Damsel in Distress etude, I used some very traditional sounding diminished sounds. We're going to add some color to them this week. And so basically what we've got here are 3 different sounds that we're going to be exploring at first. 1, 2, and 3. All right. And what this is something I call the double diminished chord. All right, so essentially what we have here is one diminished chord up here and another completely different diminished chord underneath it. Now it wouldn't be a clouds composition if I didn't have our hands overlapping just a little bit. So for each of these double diminished chords, the thing that makes them work so well is when you literally put them right on top of each other so that they overlap and create some half step tension in between some of those tones. So as you'll see, when you do play these chords, they are going to be overlapping. However, they are just one of the 3 diminished shapes that we have been studying, so it's not going to be that difficult. Now I want you to also notice that these first chords are all rolled, okay? So that's what this little squiggly line means, and there's a little arrow at the end, which means the top one should be rolled in the downward direction, the bottom one should be rolled in the upward direction, kind of like that, okay? And so we're going to have 3 different double diminished chords, 1, 2, and 3. And then using those exact same chords, we're also going to create this little rain thing, right? Because, you know, diminished chords or diminished clouds would definitely have some rain involved in them. Now, you'll notice that in the left hand, we have basic eighth notes. But in the right hand, it's very important to notice that we have eighth notes that are offset by a 16th note. So essentially, all of these are going to be E's and U's, E's and U's. And so what you end up having is 16th notes between your 2 overlapping hands. 1, E and 2, E and Now again, these are just using these notes. So you really don't, once you get your hands in position, you're not going to have to think too much about what notes you are playing. You're just going to want to make sure that they're kind of going back and forth. It's a pretty straightforward pattern once you figure it out, and you'll hear this when I demonstrate it on the keyboard in just a moment. So that covers the beginning of the piece, all right? We have our chord, our double diminished chord presented, and then we have that exact same voicing, but in a sort of broken chord 16th note pattern, happening 3 different times. Then we're gonna have maybe some lightning, I don't know, right? We have an octatonic scale descending, and then of course there's a slight pause after the lightning, and you hear, boom, the thunder. So when we see this SFZ, that is sforzando, which means suddenly loud, just like thunder would be, right? And again, we're going to be using the same double diminished chords that we've been using throughout this whole composition. And of course, that double diminished chord will then be broken up into that sort of alternating 16th note pattern between both hands. And just like all these clouds of diminished 7th, we're going to do that with all of our colors, right? So then we're going to have our next octatonic scale, a little pause, a big suddenly loud thunder, and then the broken chord. And again, one more time. Then we have our final storm, right? Which is going to walk up. So we have that one, then we have this one, it walks up. We're going to have a slight retardando, so it's going to slow down just a little bit. And then we're going to get to a very important chord, okay? This is one of my favorite extended diminished techniques. It's actually 2 techniques in one. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is what's going on in the left hand. We have a shell voicing. However, in a diminished chord, you can't have a normal root to 7 shell, right? In all of our 4-note chords, whenever you have a shell voicing in the left hand, it's going to be between the root and some sort of major or flat 7 above it. However, in a diminished chord, the shell has to be the root and then the 6th scale degree, okay? So it's a little bit of a smaller shell, but it's very useful with the diminished sound, especially for when you're looking for something to do with your left hand, okay? So in our left hand, we have a diminished shell, which is really just a 6th, right? And then above that, we have this beautiful chord, all right? And what it is a diminished chord with some added notes, okay? So I'm kind of thinking about this chord as F diminished, all right? Except on top of the chord, we actually have a T, a regular T, and the 9th scale degree. So the 7th and the 9th scale degree on top of a diminished sound. So you would have that A flat, that C flat, the D, but then you would also have an E and a G above it, and you get this beautiful, beautiful tense chord, all right? Now here's the thing. I didn't want to leave you with a rainy day, right? And so what ends up happening is one of my favorite things to do with this beautiful sound is to resolve it to a regular F6 sound, right? So we have an F major with the 9th and the 7th scale degree, and then of course the 6th is down there in the bass, okay? So I love this resolution. I love this extremely tense chord that leads to this very nice resolute sound. And then we are going to have actually some major 7 surprise at the end. The storm has passed over, the clouds are parting, the sun is coming back out, and this is actually a chord that we saw in clouds of major 7, all right? So it's going to be stacks of major 7 chords. We have, of course, our F major right here. You have your F and your C. Your A has been offset by an octave. Then we have the F major 7 in an inversion. We have the C major 7 in root position. And then finally, we have D major 7 also in root position. And that's it, okay? So we have 3 diminished chords, but we've gotten a lot of mileage out of them. In this case, we're using a lot of double diminished sounds. We're using some octatonic scales. And then of course, down here, we're going to use a diminished chord with added tones to it that resolves very nicely. Okie dokie? So let's go ahead and take a look at this piece on the keyboard. If you enjoyed today's lesson, you can support the Piano Dojo by finding today's music and all of these outlines on my website at pianodojo.com, or you can simply subscribe and share this channel with anybody else who is looking for answers about the piano. Until next time, happy practicing.